Hi everyone. In this video, we're going to look at how to calculate some statistics. Basically, it involves standard deviation formula as displayed on this Excel sheet here. And these are the parameters we are going to calculate. Deviation, squared deviation, the sum of deviations, and the sum of squared deviations, the degree of freedom, and the variance. And there will be a second video to discuss the standard deviation and how to calculate it. And I have this table here. You see this first column, and these 5 numbers are the scores for 5 tests from student A. So basically, this is our data set, and we're going to calculate these quantities in this box on the top of this page. Now, in order to calculate deviations, which is how far away each data point is from the average of the data set. So we have to have that average first. And the average in this formula is this X with a horizontal bar on top of it. That represents the average of the data set, which is also called the mean of the data set, right? So we're going to find the mean of the data set. We are going to use the average function in Excel to do that. So equals average, open the parentheses, and select these 5 numbers. And then we close the parentheses. So our average is 80. Now, all I need in order to calculate all of these deviations is to use each of these numbers, subtract 80. So let's do that. Equals, click on this cell that contains 78 minus, and at this point, you have 2 different ways to subtract 80. Either you type it, and that's the easiest way, or you click on it. But if you click on it, you have to insert $sign in front of the column number and row number, for example. So this column number actually is a letter J. You have to insert a $sign in front of it, and $sign in front of 14, which is the row number of this cell that contains 80. That way, each of this number will subtract the same 80, so it won't change. But you can also do it in a more simpler way by not clicking on the cell that contains 80. You simply just type in 80. This way, 80 will never change. So I just do it that way. So that's my deviation. That means 78 is 2 points below 80. That's why we get negative deviation. Now select this cell that contains the formula. Then put your mouse cursor on top of this small square until the mouse cursor changes shape. Then we drag it down. So these are all of the deviations. And we also need to calculate the squared deviation, right? So we need to square all of these numbers one by one. Remember, when you square a number, no matter it is positive number or negative number, the result is always positive or 0, never negative. So equals, click this number and square it, enter. Then we can just select the cell which contains the formula and do the same thing here. Drag it down. We get all of this squared version of these deviations. Now, next, we are going to find out the sum of deviations. So these are deviations. We need to add them together by using the sum function, because sum minus this, select all of these data points, close it. So sum is 0. Apparently, you know, it's 0. The reason it is 0, actually, we don't need to actually add them together to know it is 0, because the mean of a data set represents the average, which means the middle value of the whole data set. If the mean is in the middle, half of the data set will be smaller than the mean, half of the data set will be higher than the mean. So half of deviation as a result will be negative. The other half will be positive. The amount of negative deviation and the amount of positive deviations are the same. So when they add together, the total deviations are always 0. The total deviation is always 0. So when you answer your homework questions, if they ask you what is total deviation, the answer is 0. Okay. By the way, there's if your mean is a decimal number, you round it to a certain number of digits, there will be rounding errors. That means when you add your deviation together, the sum will not be exactly 0, but it should be very close. Okay, but your answer still will be 0. Now we also need to do the sum of square deviations. So I'll just do another sum here. Select these numbers and close the parentheses. So that's 10. We know that's correct, right? Okay, the next one is this, the degree of freedom. In this standard deviation formula, which is using a sample of the whole population of data. So we have this n-1 on the bottom instead of n. When you are using the whole population to calculate the standard deviation, this measurement, it will be n instead of n-1 on the bottom. So for us, the degree of freedom refers to this n-1 part in this formula. So what is n then? N is how many numbers you have in your data set, your data points. So for us, we have 5 numbers here. So our n equals 5. So this is going to be equals to 5 minus 1, because n equals 5. We know that's 4, right? Now the last item in our list of calculations here is a variance. Variance is this whole thing inside the square root in this standard deviation formula. In other words, it's the amount right before you take the square root, and that is called the variance. So let's do that. Basically, the whole thing on the top is the sum. This is sigma representing summation, the sum of squared deviations. So that's 10. In other words, the sum of square deviations divided by the degree of freedom, that will be called variance. Okay, the variance of this data set. So we just use this equals 10, which is the sum of square deviations, which is this part, divided by the degree of freedom. You can type in 4, you can just click on 4, because we only have this one calculation. We don't need to drag it down. Either way is okay. So 2.5 is called the variance of this particular data set. And that's the end of this video. See you guys in the next one.